Yeah, Duane, I look at this come together as not uh, like not even focused on you, on your public appearance, but uh, for the new friends, uh, it's very evident that so many lack the understanding and 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 in fact what to do, how to put to actually effectively step up and if they meet in a little group, one they could be they could be uplifted by maybe one or two friends within the group, and some of their wrong or slanted ideas could be corrected. I know everything starts, like you say, in the form of ideas. Once people change their ideas, their attitudes, their way of looking at things, uh, then their actions too will follow suit. So I was thinking more in that light, not even your public appearances and giving of lectures here and there. You know, yeah. What we are doing, in fact, is on the Skypes and Facebook, Twitter, and all this. Very great, very very great, reaching large numbers of people in a short space of time. The viral media. But then let's look back to when you taught these classes. In fact, I wish I sat in one of your classes at the time to actually listen to you and know what you were teaching. At the time, I remember you were still at the corporation. You were still in the corporation, and so I'm curious to know what were you teaching along the lines of what the corporation because was teaching, because we had well, the discourses, we had this and that, the books, and so you were a corporation member up to a certain point, up to when you fell out of favor with the corporation. And could it be that what you were teaching led to your excommunication in quotes, because nobody can excommunicate another from life? So I'm just curious to know whether at this time uh, you held these classes. What is it that you were doing differently, and were you in conformity with the establishment, or what? I just want to know, uh, to be enlightened about this, because you've done a lot of teaching out there, libraries and giving public presentations and all the like. So, what is it that you were doing?
Well, I was doing the basic idea. Everything went off the inner experiences, and so I was using, what Paul wrote as references. I really never used anything Harold wrote. There are a few ideas there, but no, his is more stories and whatever. But it was always referencing that, and the classes that I had mainly in my house for over 20 years, or and then other places I lived. Um, no, it was all about the real side, the inner experiences, and I was just using the the writings as a reference. That's all. I never used Harold's books or courses or whatever that, and it came to a certain point too that I didn't use any of that anymore, especially after 2001. But, I was shown to just stay there because that's all that was going on. It's kind of like a bus ride. It's kind of like you're on a bus and it's going nowhere. But at the same time, the bus is going, and you're not going to just jump off the bus as it's going 50 or 60 miles an hour. So you kind of got to go with it. So, and this is what I was shown, just go with it. So I was always pointing people to the real side. And in my classes, we always went over the real side experiences, just like what we do here. This is where the centers all dwindled up and whatever, because they just sat there. I would go to other centers, and I had several myself. And so, and the last one, the California Corporation, the Satsang Corporation took over. I think his name was Bob Ream. That was the president of it at that time. And my daughter even saw his aura, which was all gray and murky. And when she was like about 10 years old, at one of these little, I think it was a San Diego seminar I went to, and Lindsay saw him and saw his aura, etc. And they were knuckleheads, but it's fine. They took over the center. I let them have it. I didn't start that one. That was the last one. It was another fellow in the class, Bill Reed. But no, it was always to the real side. And after a while, we stopped all the courses. Didn't do anything from anything. We just went off our real side experiences. And I even made it so that if you're not going to come and share something, then basically don't come, because this is the idea, is to share something, to come and share something. Take the time to have experiences or something and come and share in the class. And so, even today, like in Africa and whatever, like Miriam said, yes, just because I like the Skypes and that better, it doesn't mean not to have groups. I don't call them classes anymore. They're groups. It's time to grow up. These are groups. And that, yes, if that makes sense, but, most people have cell phones. They can do WhatsApp or WhatsApp or whatever it is, or, whatever to bring people together in a particular way. But if it's meeting like I used to, yeah, because we didn't have the internet. We had telephones and that, and, but I never did group conferences with people because they were pretty close. We all came together, and Orange County and LA County and all the counties down here in Southern California was huge. There were thousands upon thousands of people, especially LA. That was one of the first centers that was established. And, this place is filled with, ecists, etc. And that was fine for that day. People were babying along. It was all fine to a certain point. And it just took its way, and because of the choices that were made by certain individuals. They could have chose better, but they didn't. But it's fine with me because it's a great experience to reference. But again, I always went to the real side. I didn't call it the real side then. I went along with, what Paul presented. Not necessarily the corporation. No, they started, the guidelines started to get stiffer and funnier. And no, I was the rebel. I just didn't agree. And this is where even the other echists and whatever, I heard voices and stories that, oh, Duane is teaching psychic stuff. He's doing this or that, his classes, whatever. It's like, we just giggle about that. We were just looking to the real side. And then in 2001, when I took the Rod of Power, everybody in the class, almost, they were having experiences with this. And they were seeing Joni and Harold, how they were burnt and how they were, especially Joni, she was always seductive to certain individuals and always dressing up in her lingerie, trying to seduce them. While Harold was, he was usually sitting off in the corner or something, smoldering because he was being burnt. So the thing is that it was very interesting. I always had this adventure with the real side experiences. I like to hear them. It adds to it. Otherwise, what do we have here? We have this one-dimensional hologram that we're in here every day. And that's it. I look at this life, it's fine. But there's so much more that's unseen that's just so much better. And this is where people get trapped in this, is that they're so unconsciously agreeable. It's not even that they're conscious of what they're doing, but how unconscious they are. So, yeah, that was my relationship at the time, and I was shown to hang out there and do what I did because we had the people there. Then when the new position came, everybody in the class was fine. There was about an average about 10 that I had taught for like 20 years in that class, and that were still there. And so, yeah, that was it. And whatever. And I always learned, and now it's what I've gone through. Memories can be a great reference, but nothing to hang on to because there's no life in them. But it's always that. And so again, this is what I see with what's going on. We've talked about this for years in Africa and whatever. Yes, I see that as very necessary. And what Miriam has done is wonderful. And I don't like to see it become different, because if that's what it's to be, then that's what it should be. And if there's a little struggle involved, well, go with the struggle. Yeah, we all struggle here. Yeah, it's okay. It's not all roses. But, take on the courage to do it, like the movie Braveheart. I suggest everybody see the movie Braveheart with Mel Gibson. I mean, whatever it takes, Predator, whatever movies, I mean, to inspire you, the 10 Commandments, that, it takes courage to step up and do this. It's not going to step up to you, and quit begging the boys for a new life. Figure it out, earn it, and step up and do something. So, whatever the situation entails. But again, it was always that. Yeah. Again, I saw the words, and I didn't really relate to them that way. I respected, and I was grateful for what Paul had done. That's how I saw it. But I also saw that the real side, had to be there to make sense of it all, not just a literal teaching, and that's it. That sounds good, because eventually that's all you have. You don't see anything else. There has to be something else that prepares the individual to see more. And this is what I did. But, these people in the class, I had to go through some transition. And that was with myself, because I could see it too. I had to get through certain things. So I had to step back for a little while. I had to get through it, and finally did, to do this. And these people that I used to know, I've never seen them since 2003. Because you know what? And I've seen them I've seen them on the real side, but they're not doing good, because you know what? They didn't pay attention. They didn't see the next step. I had to struggle to see it. I had to struggle a whole lot to see it. They weren't willing to do that. They became self-convinced and stayed with what they knew. And they saw me as, like the bad guy, like, oh, you fell like Darwin did and all that. Well, I did fall, you might say. But yet at the same time, I saw what was going on, because my intent didn't change. That became the difference. But I struggled. But the intent didn't change. It's like a man that was a millionaire and lost all his money. But he still has the ability to fix it. And so it became better. So, yeah, and all that seems to be important that I went through. But and so whatever it is now, but overall, this is the best, because all the kids have the cell phones. All these Africans that can't even afford to live, they usually have a cell phone. And what I recommend is, like in Africa, where we had talked about several Skypes ago, about these individuals in Nigeria or wherever wanted to spend that money to get an officialness with the government. Well, why not take that and buy a computer, and everybody shares it, and get on the Skypes, and then have meetings and whatever. Again, make sense of it, you see? And I see that, we'll see if it comes about, but the world's changing fast. At one time I saw that the temples could be communication centers. But we'll see. The things are happening faster, and we have free will here. So, I'm not a prophet, and I can't predict things because of what people decide. But in the meantime, do whatever makes sense. Yes, but I see that it's very important, because, see, when people do get together, just like the Skype, you get to hear other ideas that give you an opportunity to see more. That's the most important part, unless you don't care. You can do it on your own, but I see it's very important. And the Skypes, they're of a great value to me. They have been ever since I've done this, and ever since Ava and I have been together every moment. It's very precious, yeah. But again, each person decides what's more important, their personal life or whatever, because all you're doing is getting old very fast. Yeah, so Yeah, there you go, Charles. Yeah, the real side always. That comes first. And what we're doing here, well, this is a whatever because it's only going to be so long, isn't it? Go ahead.
Yeah, Duane, thank you for enlightening me on what you were doing, which means that uh, you were the risk taker from back then, a rebel, and uh, your activities were diametrically opposed to what uh, was done in most gatherings, or what I call them, satsang or anything. It was just mostly they were literal, just reading the books and the discourses, trying to understand what the master was saying, and it was little in the form of real side experiences. In fact, without coming to uh, joining the new presentation, one would not know anything about the importance of the real side experiences. You see, and you see, there was a um, there was a notion in the corporation that by sharing real side experiences, um, they were somehow diminished, or one's so-called progress was compromised in the process of sharing, because you were dishing out uh, facts about either yourself. The thing was all in the personal arena, that were not supposed to be exposed or to be said publicly. Everything was just secret, 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 and wrapped. There was some air of mystery around everything. Uh, People would not share real sad experiences because maybe their progress will be compromised or something like that. I'm talking as somebody who was running these classes, and I remember very well that we hardly shared real side experiences, or if they were to be shared, one had to be one had to exercise what they call discrimination uh, to talk about them. So it's really come a long way, the new presentation, and that's really the past things. And I'm really impressed to know that um in those very early times you had taken your own course, and even surprised to know that you were not using Harold's books and discourses. It's really shocking to hear that. Yeah, Duane.
Yeah, well, I'll say that actually Harold said it one time. I remember hearing him, and he said basically on the ideas of sharing the inner experiences that it was kind of a cop out. You see, in other words, he put the ideas out there that if you're sharing these things, that you're not, like the idea you're not living up to your potential, or there's almost something wrong with you or whatever. But really what he was saying is that, through the real side experiences, just like the one you shared, things are exposed. And so what he did, just like the CIA creates the conspiracy theory idea, it's to make people think, oh, that's not a good thing, that's just funny stuff. So when we share our real side experiences and what's going on, etc., well, you can ask Val with some of his old ex-friends and whatever. That's just all funny stuff, and they even more so emotionally cling to the idea of the corporation. And they refer to the corporation. Oh, I will stay in Eckankar forever. See, they refer to the idea, some building or idea, or the Mahanta. It's all ideas. And so that's a cover-up. Harold created many subliminal cover-ups. Joni writes this stuff, and they are subliminal cover-ups. That's why she's went to, the worship and prayer, the ceremonies, the rituals, because again, see, that's a distraction. All those things take people's attention to where these things supposedly become more important than the true reality life is, and recognizing that. All this ritualism, all these ideas, this is all of creation. It's all a ritual. None of it has merit because none of it's alive. It's a simulator. But we use it as a reference. That's what it's for. And you can, gradually recognize off of that. That's what it's for. But it is not an absolute or reality. That's where it becomes, distorted. And that's where the individual is not seeing what is taking place. But other than that, no, creation is fine. It has its value. It all has its value. And we were babied at those times, and we needed to be. We all came through that. But each individual, each person decides and, sees what they do themselves. This is where, most of the time someone will go out and do something where others just sit and watch. I went out and I did public lecturing. I would pass out flyers. I'd make them up. I'd go to a printer. I had to paste these things up and have them printed and etc. And I go pass them out. Couldn't even get the classes to do it. Maybe got them to do it 1 or 2 times over those 20 years. But I just did it all myself. After a while, I was just frustrated. It's like, forget it. Even my former wife wouldn't do it. She did it one time and she didn't like it. And so I just did it myself because it was my adventure. I wanted to constantly see more. This is a huge journey, huge. And I cannot give people my experience. And again, I suggest don't take anything for granted because it's huge. Give yourself 100 years. I still give myself, 100 years or 500. It doesn't matter because it's endless. I haven't reached something that all of a sudden there I am. There's no such thing. And Rebazar and the boys the same way. It's endless. And so this personal self, it's a huge barrier. It becomes a huge barrier when the individual takes it for granted. All of a sudden, it's a barrier. And so again, you really have to figure around this personal self. And so it's taking on the risk and the adventure and scaring yourself so that you might say, be indifferent and sidestep this personal self as much as possible. That's the old idea of always getting out of the body and whatever. Yeah, that's fine too. That's just another way of doing it, getting away from the personal self. But once you recognize the isness, it all is. So that becomes even more so than even projecting or whatever anywhere. It's very interesting how it is. So we went through all these means. But again, it's up to each individual and what they experience. So yes, Charles, we've come a long way. You see the difference. And, these people are making their choice. It's fine. But it's all being suppressed. And it's being suppressed by a deception and marketing ploy that looks good. That's all. It all looks good. And people are paying for that. They're working hard at their 9-to-5 boring jobs every day and then saving their money to go to the seminar to see Harry as he's dwindling away. Well, they can see him on the real side dwindling away too. They don't have to pay all that money. Whatever.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. In fact, I really see now that the corporation consolidated one in the personal self, because everything just became personal. Your experiences became personal, were not to be shared, because the value will be diminished, and your spiritual progress will be curtailed because you maybe broken the law of silence about your own activities and your travels in the other dimensions, in the other realms. In fact, one was really in the dark. So what were we actually? You were the lone wolf who took this risk to be teaching other to to break from the tradition. And I'm sure the very few like you. So what we were actually teaching, we're just doing literal stuff. That is it. I drew up the classes, the programs. I scheduled the classes, and I was a teacher there. So what were we teaching actually? When people could not share experiences, to learn from them. I don't know. So you see how people became stagnant, fixed, fossilized.
Charles, it's everything you've mentioned and more. And if people want to know more about this, they can read Joni's handbook, the 42,000 page summary of guidelines that she's created. Do you know about that?
Oh, the guidelines were there, even
Joni, yes, it's, you're not going to see it on the physical, but it's on the real side, and it's bigger than the Bible. So again, it's constantly writing new restrictions. So yeah, and many people follow that, especially on the real side. You think you got restrictions here with what's going on? It's nothing compared to the real side. Yeah, it's cyberspace netted very well. They don't stop, kind of like a spider weaving the webs. It's ongoing. Yeah, that's on the real side. So when people, just like Marjorie, think in their heads that they are a particular, they had their little time here, but when they go to the real side, they got nothing. They're totally trapped because they've already agreed to everything that they don't recognize. Yeah. And then this is where the reptilians came and took her away. So that's where she's stuck. Yeah. So, yeah. The Joni handbook is bigger than the Bible. Yeah.
Well, I thought you were talking about the guidelines that came out a few years ago, some years ago. There's some physical physical guidelines. They're really thick like that. The RZA brought what to do and what.
That's all written by. All that's written by her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she narrates everything. People can think, oh, well, this is from Eckankar. No, it's from Joni. She writes everything. She makes sure everything is whatever it is. She does it. Yeah. And you see that on the real side. Yeah, she's very crafty, and she has others like the old scribes, with her whip and having them, write whatever's, kind of like some of the stuff you see on Facebook by the Ekis and whatever, writing all this literal nonsense just to confuse people, and then people their replies and comments are, oh gee, that was wonderful, oh you said that so nice, whatever. Yeah, they're all channels for Joni. That's all they are. They try to get away, but they can't. They're like the spider and the fly. They're on the net, but they can still write. Their backs and their wings are, stuck in the web, but they still got their little computers and they can write. And it all comes out to be nonsense, and goes where. Yeah. So, all the bugs in the web, talking to each other. It's how real it is. So, this experience that you shared in the beginning, that's why I'd like to have it. But, people can listen to it more so, and maybe Kelsey will make just that part of to talk today, do a little video or something on that. Very real. Let's see who listens. But for the most part, they don't want to hear it. But it's okay. We, again, some people are listening, and it's for everybody. All of life is for everyone. No restrictions. We don't need governments. We don't need people to tell us what to do. All life is for everyone. That's just it. We're all free beings of real light. Take the time to recognize that. Yeah. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, Duane. Thank you. I was loaded down with guidelines. As a leader, needed to be masterful on the guidelines, know them by heart, in order to be able to run the centers. My God.